You're sitting in a room with a group of strangers, staring at a card with 3 lines of different lengths. The task seems simple. Pick the line that matches the one on another card. You know the answer. It's obvious. But then, one by one, everyone else in the room picks the wrong line. They're confident, unanimous, and now it's your turn. Your stomach twists. Do you trust your eyes, or do you go along with the crowd? This is the heart of Solomon Asch's 1951 conformity experiment, a study that peels back the skin of human nature to reveal how desperately you crave to fit in, even when you know you're right. Imagine the setup. You're a volunteer, thinking you're part of a vision test. The group around you, 7 or 8 others, seems normal, but they're in on it. Confederates planted by Asch to give wrong answers. The lines aren't even close. One's clearly longer, another shorter. Yet, when the group picks the wrong one, you hesitate. In Asch's study, 75% of participants conformed at least once, picking the wrong line just to avoid standing out. Only 25% stuck to their guns every time. You'd like to think you'd be in that stubborn quarter, wouldn't you? But the numbers don't lie. Most people bend under pressure, even when the truth is staring them in the face. Why does this happen? It's not just cowardice. Your brain is wired to seek harmony, to avoid the social sting of being the odd one out. Asch showed that conformity isn't about believing the group's answer. It's about avoiding conflict. You might still see the right line, but saying it out loud feels like defying gravity. In some trials, participants admitted they doubted their own eyes, their confidence eroded by the group's certainty. Others knew the truth, but didn't want to seem difficult. Sound familiar? Think of that time you nodded along at a meeting, even though you knew the idea was doomed. Asch's experiment whispers, "You're not as independent as you think." Now picture this. Asch tweaks the experiment. In one version, just one other person agrees with you, and suddenly you're bolder. Conformity drops. A single ally makes you feel less like a lone lunatic. But when the group is unanimous, the pressure spikes. You start to wonder if you're the one who's wrong, even when the evidence is clear. This isn't just about lines on a card. It's about how you navigate life, from fashion trends to political opinions. The group's voice can drown out your own. Asch's work forces you to ask, when do you stand firm, and when do you just go with the flow? The curiosity hook here is brutal. You think you're free, but are you? Asch's findings suggest your choices are shaped by invisible strings, pulled by the people around you. Even now, as you listen, you might wonder, have you ever conformed without realizing it? Maybe it was a small thing, like laughing at a joke you didn't get, or something bigger, like staying silent when you should have spoken up. The experiment's soft suspense lingers. You're not done wrestling with conformity. It's there, in every social moment, waiting to test you again. Asch's study wasn't perfect. Critics later pointed out the participants were mostly male college students, a narrow slice of humanity. Cultural differences matter too. Some societies prize individuality more than others. Yet the core truth holds. You're a social creature, and that makes you vulnerable. The group can sway you, even when you see through the illusion. As you drift toward sleep, picture those lines again. You know the right one, but the room is watching. and their eyes are heavy. What do you say? You're standing in a sterile room, a machine humming ominously in front of you. It's got dials, switches, and a row of labels: 15 volts, 30 volts, all the way up to 450, marked danger, severe shock. Someone in a lab coat, calm and authoritative, tells you to deliver shocks to a person in another room every time they answer a question wrong. You're just following orders, they say. The first few shocks are mild, but the learner's cries grow louder, more desperate. You hesitate, but the experimenter voice is firm. The experiment requires that you continue. Do you keep going? This is Stanley Milgram's 1961 obedience experiment, and it's about to show you how far you'll go when someone in charge tells you it's okay. Picture yourself as one of Milgram's volunteers. You're told it's a study on learning and punishment. The learner is strapped to a chair, electrodes on their arms, but you don't know they're an actor, unharmed, faking every scream. You start with small shocks, 15 volts, a slight buzz. The learner gets questions wrong, and you're told to increase the voltage. At 75 volts, they grunt in pain. By 150, they're begging to stop. Your heart races. You want to quit. But the experimenter, clipboard in hand, says, you must go on. In Milgram's study, 65% of participants went all the way to 450 volts. Even when the learner screamed, pleaded, or fell silent, you'd stop, right? Or would you? Here's the hook that grabs you. You think you'd resist, but Milgram's numbers suggest otherwise. Why do you obey? It's not just fear of authority. It's the slow, slippery slope. Each small shock makes the next one easier. You tell yourself it's not your fault. You're just following orders. The experimenter takes the blame, and you keep flipping switches. Milgram showed how ordinary people, like you, can commit atrocities if someone in a position of power says it's necessary. Think of history, soldiers, bureaucrats, everyday folks who just followed orders. Milgram's experiment isn't just a lab game, it's a mirror. Now, imagine the variations. If the learner is in the same room, visible and suffering, you're less likely to obey. Only 40% went to the max. Distance makes it easier to dehumanize. If the experimenter gives orders over the phone, obedience drops to 20%. Authority feels weaker when it's not breathing down your neck. But when two experimenters disagree, you're even more likely to stop. Confusion breaks the spell. Milgram's findings whisper, your morality is fragile, bending under the weight of a calm, confident voice saying, it's okay. This experiment stings because it forces you to confront your own compliance. Remember that time you went along with something, a workplace decision, a group's bad idea, because someone in charge made it sound right. Milgram's work suggests you're not as defiant as you hope. The suspense lies in the question, where's your line? At what point do you say no, even if it costs you? The study's power is its quiet accusation. You might not know until you're there, dial in hand, hearing screams. Critics later questioned Milgram's ethics, scaring participants, tricking them into thinking they caused harm. Some say the lab setting was too artificial, not like real life, yet the results echo in whistleblower stories, in accounts of blind obedience, in corporations or governments. As you lie there, eyes heavy, think about the last time you followed a rule you didn't understand. Did you push back, or did you turn the dial? Milgram's experiment doesn't just reveal human nature, it challenges you to rewrite your own. You're not asleep yet, but the question lingers. What would you do in that room? You're walking down a busy city street, the kind where everyone's in a hurry. Heads down, earbuds in. Ahead, you hear a scream, a woman's voice, sharp and panicked. You glance around, expecting someone to rush toward the sound, but nobody does. People keep moving, eyes averted, as if nothing's wrong. You hesitate. Should you help? The crowd's indifference feels like a signal. Maybe it's not your problem. This is the bystander effect, born from the 1964 murder of Kitty Genovese, a case that gripped psychologists Bibb Latane and John Darley and revealed how you can freeze when others do nothing. Picture the scene. It's 3 a.m. in Queens, New York. Kitty Genovese is attacked outside her apartment. She screams for help, and lights flicker on in nearby windows. Neighbors hear her cries, but no one calls the police right away. The attack lasts over 30 minutes, and by the time help arrives, she's gone. Early reports claimed 38 witnesses did nothing, though later accounts clarified some called police or shouted. Still, the story sparked a question that haunts you. Why do you stand by when someone needs help? Latane and Darley's experiments showed it's not heartlessness. It's the crowd itself that paralyzes you. Here's the curiosity hook. You think you'd leap into action, but the more people around, the less likely you are to help. In their studies, Latane and Darley staged emergencies, like a person collapsing or smoke filling a room. When you're alone, you act fast, helping over 70% of the time. But in a group of 5, your odds drop to 40%. Why? It's diffusion of responsibility. You assume someone else will step up, so you don't. You look to others for cues, and their calm faces trick you into thinking it's no big deal. The suspense builds. Would you move, or would you wait for someone braver? Imagine you're in one of their experiments. You're filling out a survey when smoke seeps under the door. Alone, you'd probably check it out. With others who shrug it off, you second-guess yourself. Maybe it's just steam. You don't want to look foolish. This is pluralistic ignorance. When everyone privately worries, but publicly acts cool, Latane and Darley showed groups make you dumber, not safer. In another setup, a staged seizure played over an intercom. If you thought you were the only listener, you helped 85% of the time. If you thought others heard too, it fell to 31%. Numbers don't lie. The crowd's a trap. Now think about real life. You've seen it. People gawking at a car accident, nobody stopping, or a viral video of someone being harassed while onlookers film. The bystander effect isn't just about emergencies. It's why you might ignore a coworker's struggle or stay quiet when a friend's being bullied. You tell yourself it's not your place. But Latane and Darley's work whispers that's an excuse. They also found solutions. If you know about the effect, you're more likely to act. If someone in trouble locks eyes with you, saying, "You, help me," it snaps you out of the haze. Personal responsibility cuts through the fog. The soft suspense here is personal. When have you been a bystander? Maybe it was subtle, a joke. That crossed a line, and you didn't speak up. The Genovese case, flawed as its legend may be, still asks, what stops you? Critics note, the experiments oversimplify. Cultural norms, fear of danger, or trust in authorities shape your choice. Yet the truth remains. You're less heroic in a crowd. As you sink toward sleep, imagine that scream again. The street's packed, but this time you feel eyes on you. Do you move, or do you blend into the blur of faces? You are sitting in a cozy diner, sipping coffee, when a stranger at the next table leans over and tells you a wild story about a car accident they saw last week. The details are vivid. A red truck, a shattered windshield, a blaring horn. You nod, picturing it clearly. Later, you recount the story to a friend, swearing you can almost hear that horn yourself. But here's the twist. The stranger never mentioned a horn. Your mind filled in the gap. This is the misinformation effect, uncovered by Elizabeth Loftus in the 1970s, and it's about to make you question every memory you hold dear. Imagine you're a participant in one of Loftus's experiments. You watch a short video of a car crash, two vehicles colliding at a stop sign. Afterward, you're asked questions, but they're tricky. One group hears, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? Another hears contacted instead of smashed. A week later, you're asked if you saw broken glass. If you got the smashed question, you're twice as likely to say yes, even though there was no glass. Your memory shifts, shaped by a single word. Loftus found that 32% of smashed participants saw glass, compared to 14% in the contacted group. You trust your memory, don't you? But what if it's a liar? The hook here is unsettling. Your memories aren't snapshots, they're sketches, redrawn every time you recall them. Loftus's work shows how suggestion can plant details that feel real. In another study, participants viewed slides of a pedestrian accident. Some were asked about a yield sign, others a stop sign. Later, many swore they saw the sign they were asked about, even if it wasn't there. It's not just words. Leading questions, rumors, or even therapy can rewrite your past. You start to wonder, how many of your memories are contaminated? Picture a courtroom. You're a witness, confident in what you saw during a robbery, but the lawyer asks, was the suspect wearing a blue jacket? Now you're picturing blue, even if it was green. Loftus's research shook the legal world, showing eyewitness testimony, once ironclad, can be dangerously flawed. In one chilling experiment, she planted entire memories. Participants were told they got lost in a mall as kids, a fake story fed by family accounts. By the end, 25% remembered it, adding details like a kind stranger or a favorite toy. You're not just misremembering, you're creating fiction. This hits hard because it's personal. Think of a childhood memory, say, a family picnic. Are you sure about the red checkered blanket? Or did someone's photo album plant that image? Loftus's findings suggest you're vulnerable every time you talk, listen, or reflect. The suspense lingers. What else have you misremembered? Maybe it's a fight with a friend, where you're certain they said something cruel. Did they? Or did your anger rewrite the script? The effect explains why siblings argue over what really happened, or why you cling to a memory that feels true but might not be. Critics argue Loftus's lab setups don't match real life. Car crashes on film aren't like trauma in person. Others say memories of emotional events, like a wedding or loss, are harder to distort. Yet her work holds up. Misinformation creeps in everywhere. From fake news to family lore, you're shaping and being shaped. As you drift toward sleep, picture that diner again. The stranger's story plays in your head, but now you hear a horn that wasn't there. What else in your mind is a ghost, whispering details you never really knew? You're led into a basement at Stanford University, where the air smells faintly of mildew and tension. You've signed up for a psychology experiment, and now you're handed a role, guard or prisoner. The flip of a coin makes you a guard, and you're given a uniform, sunglasses, and a baton. The prisoners, your classmates, wear smocks and numbers. You're told to keep order in this mock prison, but no one says how. Within hours, you're barking orders, and the prisoners cower. By day 2, things spiral. Push-ups as punishment, sleep deprivation, rebellion. This is Philip Zimbardo's 1971 Stanford prison experiment, and it's about to show you how quickly you can become someone you don't recognize. Picture the setup. A hallway turned into a cell block. 24 college. Students randomly split into 2 groups. It's supposed to last 2 weeks, but it's shut down after 6 days because things get too real. You, as a guard, start off unsure. Maybe you joke with the prisoners at first, but soon you're enforcing rules, relishing the power. The prisoners, stripped of identity, grow submissive or defiant. One breaks down, sobbing. Another stages a hunger strike. Zimbardo, watching from behind cameras, sees you transform. The hook grabs you hard. You think you're a good person. But what happens when a role gives you permission to be cruel? The experiment's power lies in its speed. Within 48 hours, you're not playing anymore. You're living the role. Guards invent punishments, solitary confinement in a closet, humiliating chants. Prisoners start snitching or plotting escape. Zimbardo later admitted he got sucked in too, as the superintendent, reluctant to stop the chaos. The study showed how situations shape you more than your character. You don't need a bad heart to do bad things, just a badge and a system that nods along. Ever felt a rush telling someone what to do? That's the seed Zimbardo watered. Now, imagine you're a prisoner instead. You feel powerless, your name replaced by a number. You obey because resistance seems futile. This mirrors real-world dynamics. Think of workplaces where bosses wield unchecked control, or institutions that dehumanize. Zimbardo's findings suggest you adapt to roles faster than you'd like to admit. In follow-ups, participants said they were shocked at their own behavior. Guards felt guilt. Prisoners felt shame. You start to wonder, what roles are you playing right now? Parent, employee, friend. How do they twist you? The suspense here is quiet, but sharp. Could you lose yourself so easily? Zimbardo's experiment forces you to face your malleability. Remember that time you went along with a group's vibe, even if it felt off? Maybe you were the guard in a clique enforcing unspoken rules. The study's not just about prisons, it's about any system that hands you a script. Critics later slammed its ethics. Participants weren't fully prepared for the psychological toll. Some say the results were exaggerated. Guards were coached to be tough. Yet the core truth lingers. Roles can corrupt you fast. As you lie there, eyes heavy, picture that basement. You're a guard, baton in hand, or a prisoner staring at the floor. The line between you and them blurs. Zimbardo's work whispers, you're not as fixed as you think. In life, you slip into roles without noticing. Leader, follower, hero, villain. Which one's got you now? The experiment's shadow stretches beyond the lab. Into every moment you choose who to be. Sleep's pulling you, but the question hums. What role will you wake up to tomorrow? You're sitting in a meeting room, surrounded by colleagues who are buzzing about a new project. Everyone's excited, convinced it's a game changer. You're skeptical. The data doesn't add up, and you've seen similar ideas crash before, but the group's enthusiasm is infectious, and you start to doubt yourself. Instead of speaking up, you nod along, even though your gut screams, it's a mistake. This is cognitive dissonance, the mental itch you feel when your beliefs and actions don't align. Leon Festinger's 1950s study of a doomsday cult cracked open this paradox, showing how you cling to shaky beliefs when reality slaps you in the face. Imagine you're part of Festinger's research, infiltrating a cult led by a woman named Marion Keech. She's convinced aliens will save her followers from a world-ending flood on December 21st, 1954. You join the group, watching as they sell their homes, quit jobs, and wait for the spaceship. The date comes. No flood, no aliens. You expect them to abandon the belief, right? Wrong. Most double down, claiming their faith saved the world. Festinger's team saw it firsthand. When you're deeply invested, you don't admit you're wrong. You rewrite the story. The hook is jarring. Why do you hold tighter to a belief when it's proven false? Festinger's theory says your brain hates the tension of conflicting ideas. You believe you're smart, so acting foolishly, like joining a cult or backing a bad project, creates dissonance. To ease it, you change either your behavior or your belief. Changing behavior is hard. You've already quit your job or nodded in that meeting, so you tweak the belief. The aliens were testing you, or the project's flaws are minor. In experiments, Festinger paid people to lie about enjoying a boring task. Those paid less felt more dissonance. They had no excuse for lying, so they convinced themselves the task was fun. You do this too, don't you? Ever justify a bad purchase by hyping its hidden benefits? Picture yourself in a follow-up study. You're asked to argue for a policy you hate, like raising taxes. Afterward, you're more likely to soften your stance, especially if you weren't forced. Your brain wants consistency, so it nudges your beliefs to match your words. This is why you might defend a choice you made under pressure, like staying in a toxic job. Festinger's work shows it's not just about cults. It's every time you rationalize a mistake. Remember that argument where you dug in, even when you knew you were wrong? That's dissonance at work, twisting your logic to save your pride. The Suspense here is personal. How often do you lie to yourself? Festinger's findings suggest it's constant. You justify staying up late, saying, I work better at night, or stick with a failing plan because you've come too far. Critics argue the theory's too broad. Cultural norms or personality traits shape how you handle dissonance. Some say lab studies oversimplify real-world stakes, yet the effect persists, from politics to relationships. You see it in people who defend bad leaders or cling to debunked ideas. It's not just them, it's you. As sleep creeps in, think of that meeting room. You're nodding, but your gut's still churning. Festinger whispers, you're not stuck. You could change your mind, admit the mistake. But it's easier to rewrite the story, isn't it? The cult waited for aliens. You wait for the project to turn around. The dissonance hums, a quiet tension in your choices. What belief are you holding too tightly? Even now, as the world fades to dark, you're sitting at a small table, a single marshmallow staring back at you. You're a kid again, maybe 4 or 5, and a researcher in a white coat says you can eat it now, but if you wait 15 minutes, you'll get 2. The door closes, and you're alone with that fluffy temptation. Your mouth waters, but you want that second marshmallow. Can you hold out? This is Walter Mischel's 1960s marshmallow test, a deceptively simple experiment that digs into your ability to delay gratification and hints at how it shapes your life. It's not just about candy, it's about who you become. Picture yourself in the Stanford nursery school, where Mischel ran his study. You're one of hundreds of kids, each facing the same choice, 1 treat now or 2 later. Some kids gobble the marshmallow the second the researcher leaves. Others squirm, sing, or cover their eyes, fighting the urge. Mischel's team watched through a one-way mirror, timing how long you last. About a third of the kids waited the full 15 minutes, earning the extra treat. Years later, follow-ups found those who waited tended to score higher on college entrance exams, had better jobs, and even lower divorce rates. The hook sinks deep. Could a childhood choice predict your future? The test isn't about willpower alone. It's about strategy. Kids who succeeded didn't just grit their teeth. They distracted themselves. You might kick the table, hum a tune, or imagine the marshmallows a cloud. Mischel showed self-control isn't fixed. It's a skill you learn. In later studies, kids who were taught tricks, like pretend it's a picture, waited longer. But here's the twist. Your environment matters. If the researcher seemed unreliable, say they promised toys but didn't deliver, you were less likely to wait. Why trust a second marshmallow will come? You start to wonder, how much of your patience depends on the world around you? Now imagine you're an adult facing your own marshmallow test. It's not candy, it's skipping a night out to save money or studying instead of scrolling. Mischel's work suggests your childhood habits linger. Kids who couldn't wait often struggled with impulse control later, from overeating to overspending. But it's not destiny. In experiments, teaching kids self-control techniques improved their outcomes. You can change too. Ever notice how you avoid temptation, like leaving your phone in another room? That's your inner 4-year-old, still learning to wait. The suspense here is subtle, but gripping. What's your marshmallow right now? Mischel's findings force you to confront your impulses. Remember that time you splurged on something you didn't need, chasing instant joy? Or when you stuck to a goal, feeling stronger for it? The test reveals why some choices feel like battles. Critics later challenged the study's scope. Poverty, stress, or cultural values shape how you prioritize rewards. A kid in a tough home might eat the marshmallow because tomorrow's uncertain. The original sample, mostly affluent, missed those nuances. Still, the core truth holds. Delaying gratification is a muscle you build. As you drift toward sleep, picture that marshmallow on the table. It's soft, powdery, calling your name. You could grab it, or you could wait, imagining the sweeter payoff. Mitchell's experiment whispers, your choices, even the small ones, echo forward. What are you waiting for in life? Success, love, peace, and what tempts you to give up early? The room's quiet now, but the test never ends. You're still deciding, even as your eyes grow heavy, whether to reach or hold back. You're watching a basketball game on a grainy video, counting how many times the white-shirted team passes the ball. You're focused, eyes darting as the players weave around each other. The task feels simple, and you're determined to get it right. You tally the passes, 13, 14, 15, and feel a flicker of pride in your focus. But then the researcher asks, did you see the gorilla? You blink, confused. What gorilla? This is Daniel Simon's 1999 Invisible Gorilla experiment, and it's about to make you question how much you really see of the world around you. Picture yourself in Simon's study. The video is short, just a minute long. Two teams, one in white, one in black, pass basketballs in a hallway. Your job is to count the white team's passes. It's not easy. Players move fast, and you're laser focused on the ball. When it's over, you're confident in your count. But Simon's question about the gorilla throws you. He replays the video, and there it is. A person in a gorilla suit strolls through the scene, thumping their chest. Half the participants, 50%, miss it entirely, just like you might. The hook is startling. How do you miss a gorilla in plain sight? This is about selective attention, or what Simons calls inattentional blindness. Your brain filters out what you're not looking for, even if it's absurdly obvious. In the experiment, focusing on the passes makes you blind to the gorilla. It's not laziness. Your mind is built to prioritize. Simons ran variations. In one, a woman with an umbrella replaced the gorilla, and still, many missed it. Another tweaked the task to count bounces instead of passes. Same result. You think you see the whole picture, but you're editing reality in real time. Ever wonder what else you're missing? Now, imagine this outside the lab. You're driving, focused on the road, but you miss a cyclist because you're checking for cars. Or you're in a meeting, so caught up in your notes that you don't notice a colleague's distress. Simon's work shows your attention is a spotlight, narrow, selective, and blind to what's outside it. In follow-up studies, he found you're even less likely to notice changes if they're gradual, like a building vanishing from a photo over seconds. Your brain fills in the gaps, assuming the world stays stable. It's why you might not notice a friend's slow weight gain or a shift in their mood. The suspense here is quiet but unnerving. What's your gorilla right now? Simon's experiment suggests you're missing more than you think every day. Remember that time you swore you checked your email only to find an urgent message you missed? Or when you walked past a street performer, oblivious to their music? The study's power is its challenge. You're not as aware as you believe. Critics note, the lab setting is artificial. Real life's chaos might make you more or less attentive. Others say cultural training, like urban versus rural upbringings, shapes what you notice. Yet, the gorilla lingers, a reminder of your limits as you sink into sleep. Picture that video again. The ball's bouncing, players darting, and you're counting passes. Somewhere, a gorilla walks by, unseen. Simon's work whispers, your world is smaller than you think. What's slipping past your spotlight right now? A kind gesture, a warning sign, a fleeting chance. The question hums as your eyelids droop, blending into the dark. You're not just missing gorillas. You're missing pieces of your own reality. You're standing at a railway switch, staring down a set of tracks where a runaway trolley is barreling forward. 5 workers are tied to the rails ahead, oblivious to the danger. You can pull a lever to divert the trolley onto another track, but there's a catch. One person is tied there. Do you pull the lever, sacrificing one life to save 5? Or do you do nothing, letting the 5 die? This is the trolley problem, a moral dilemma first posed by philosopher Philippa Foot in 1967, and it forces you to wrestle with the jagged edges of your own morality. Picture yourself in a psychology lab. Facing this thought experiment, you're not really at the tracks. Question feels heavy. In studies, about 80% of people say they'd pull the lever. Saving 5 lives seems worth 1. But now the scenario shifts. Instead of a lever, you're on a bridge, and you can stop the trolley by pushing a large man off onto the tracks. He'll die, but the 5 will live. Suddenly, only 10% say they'd do it. Why the difference? Both choices trade 1 life for 5, yet pushing feels personal, visceral. The hook cuts deep. You think you know right from wrong, but would you kill with your own hands? The trolley problem, studied by psychologists like Joshua Green, reveals how your brain juggles 2 moral systems. Your rational side calculates numbers, 1 versus 5. Your emotional side recoils at actively causing harm. Brain scans show your prefrontal cortex lights up when you weigh the lever option, but pushing the man triggers your amygdala, screaming danger. In variations, if the one person is your child or a villain, your choice shifts. You're not just logical, you're swayed by feelings, relationships, and context. Ever faced a tough call where your heart and head fought? That's the trolley problem in your life. Now, imagine real-world stakes. You're a doctor with 1 ventilator and 6 patients, or a manager deciding who to lay off. The trolley problem isn't just a game. It mirrors choices where you weigh harm against harm. In experiments, people from collectivist cultures, like in East Asia, are less likely to sacrifice 1 for many, valuing group harmony over cold math. Meanwhile, those with psychopathic traits choose the logical option more often, unmoved by emotional weight. You start to wonder, where do you fall? Are you driven by numbers or by the gut punch of causing pain? The suspense here is a slow burn. There's no right answer, but you can't look away. You want to believe you'd save the 5, but pushing that man feels wrong. Studies show you're more likely to act if you feel detached, say, in a war room, pressing a button, not on a bridge. This explains why you might support policies that hurt a few for the greater good, but flinch at personal cruelty. Remember that time you stayed quiet when a friend was unfairly blamed? You didn't pull the lever, but did you let the trolley run? Critics argue the trolley problem is too abstract. Real life rarely offers such clear choices. Others say it ignores social factors like trust or consequences after the decision, yet its power lies in making you confront your values. As you drift toward sleep, picture those tracks. The trolley's rumble grows louder, and your hand hovers over the lever. 5 lives, 1 life, your choice. The dilemma whispers, what defines your morality? Is it what you do, or what you can live with? The tracks fade, but the question hums, tugging you into the dark. You're at a factory, part of a study where researchers are watching you assemble widgets. The task is dull. Screw in bolts, stack parts, repeat. At first, you work at your usual pace, steady but unhurried. Then you notice the clipboard-wielding observer jotting notes, their eyes fixed on you. Suddenly, you're moving faster, checking your work twice, sitting up straighter. You're not sure why, but being watched changes you. This is the Hawthorne Effect, named after a 1920s study at the Hawthorne Works factory, and it reveals how your behavior shifts under scrutiny, even when you don't mean it to. Imagine you're one of the workers in the original experiments near Chicago. Researchers want to see how lighting affects productivity, so they tweak the factory's bulbs. Brighter, dimmer, back to normal. Each time, your output rises, no matter the change. Puzzled, they try other tweaks. Shorter breaks, longer hours. Again, you work harder. It's not the lights or the schedule, it's the attention. Knowing you're being studied makes you try harder, like a performer under a spotlight. The hook is sneaky. You think you act the same whether anyone's watching or not, do you? The Hawthorne studies, led by Elton Mayo, showed that observation alters behavior in subtle ways. In one phase, a small group of women assembled telephone relays in a test room. Productivity climbed, not because of physical changes, but because the women felt special. Someone cared about their work. They chatted, bonded, and pushed each other. Knowing researchers were tracking every move, data showed output rose by up to 30% under observation, even when conditions worsened. You're not just a worker, you're a social animal, craving approval, even from a clipboard. Now picture this in your life. You're at the gym, and a trainer glances your way. Suddenly, you're lifting heavier, or you're in a classroom, and the teacher's eyes linger. You sit up, answer sharper. The Hawthorne Effect explains why you perform better or differently when you feel seen. In later studies, teachers told some students they were gifted, and those kids outperformed others. Even though the label was random, attention shapes you, sometimes more than talent. Ever notice how you tidy your desk when the boss walks by? That's the effect, whispering in your ear. The suspense here is quiet but real. How much of you is performance? The Hawthorne effect suggests you're always adjusting, consciously or not, when eyes are on you. Remember that time you worked late because a manager was around, even though you were exhausted? Or when you laughed louder at a friend's joke in a crowd? Critics of the study argue it's messy. Other factors, like group dynamics or better pay, might have boosted productivity. The original data was also reanalyzed, showing weaker effects than claimed, yet the core idea sticks. Being watched changes you, often without you noticing. As you sink toward sleep, imagine that factory again. The hum of machines, the weight of eyes on your back. You're stacking widgets faster. But why? Is it pride, pressure, or something deeper? The Hawthorne effect murmurs, you're never quite yourself when someone's looking. In life, you're always under some spotlight. Friends, family, social media. How much do you shift to please them? The question lingers, soft as the dark, as your breathing slows and the factory fades. You're lying in a small, dimly lit room, electrodes taped to your fingers, hooked to a machine that hums with menace. A researcher tells you to press a button when you see a certain word flash on a screen. Easy enough. But every wrong answer brings a mild electric shock. Not enough to injure, but enough to make you flinch. At first, you try to get it right, but the shocks keep coming, random and relentless. After a while, you stop trying to avoid them. You slump, defeated, accepting the pain as inevitable. This is Martin Seligman's 1960s learned helplessness experiment, and it's about to show you why you give up when escape seems impossible. Picture yourself as one of Seligman's subjects, except in the original study, you're a dog in a shuttle box, a cage split by a low barrier. One side delivers shocks, the other is safe. At first, you jump the barrier to escape, but in some trials, the shocks are unavoidable, hitting no matter what you do. After enough tries, you stop moving. Even when the barrier's there, you lie down, whimpering, as the shocks continue. Seligman found that 66% of dogs in this setup gave up, even when escape was possible. The hook is chilling. You think you'd keep fighting. But what if you're wired to surrender? Seligman extended this to humans, using setups like yours with the electrodes. In one version, you're given unsolvable puzzles, while hearing loud, unpredictable noises. You try to solve them, but failure after failure drains you. Later, when given solvable puzzles, you barely try. Your effort drops by nearly 50% compared to those who didn't face the rigged tasks. Learned helplessness is your brain's shortcut. When control feels gone, you stop seeking it. Ever felt stuck in a bad job or relationship, convinced nothing you do matters? That's the shadow of Seligman's work creeping in. Now imagine this outside the lab. You're struggling with a skill. Say, learning a language. Early failures pile up, and soon you're avoiding practice, telling yourself you're just not good at it. Seligman's research shows this isn't laziness. It's a learned response. In studies, kids who faced repeated academic setbacks often stopped trying, even when given easier tasks. But there's hope. Teaching you to reframe failures as temporary boosts effort. In one experiment, students trained to see mistakes as learning opportunities, solved 30% more problems later. You can unlearn helplessness, but it takes work. The suspense here is personal and heavy. Where have you stopped trying? Seligman's findings force you to face your own moments of surrender. Remember that time you gave up on a goal, maybe a diet or a project, because early stumbles felt like proof you'd fail. The study suggests your mind can trap you, but it also hints at escape. Critics argue the animal studies were cruel and question how well they translate to humans. Others say personality traits, like optimism, can buffer helplessness. Yet, the core truth holds. Failure can rewire you to expect more failure. As you drift toward sleep, picture that shuttle box. The shocks hum. The barrier looms. But you're still lying there. Seligman's work whispers, you're not as trapped as you feel. In life, you hit walls, rejections, setbacks, dead ends. Do you stay down, or do you try one more time? The question lingers, soft as a fading pulse, as the room dissolves into dark. You're not a dog, not a lab subject, but the weight of giving up feels familiar, doesn't it? You're at a summer camp, surrounded by kids your age, split into two groups. Let's call them the Eagles and the Rattlers. You're an Eagle, proud of your team's flag and the makeshift clubhouse you've built. The Rattlers, though, are starting to grate on you. They're loud, cocky, and keep winning at tug of war. A week in, you're not just competing. You're sneering, stealing their stuff, even plotting a raid. This is Muzaffar Sharif's 1954 Robbers Cave experiment, and it's about to show you how quickly you can hate someone just because they're on the other team. Picture yourself at Robbers Cave State Park, Oklahoma, one of 22 boys in Sheriff's study. You're 11, away from home, and the camp feels like an adventure. At first, you bond with your group, hiking, swimming, building a sense of us. Then you meet the Rattlers, and the counselors pit you against each other in competitions, baseball, treasure hunts, relay races. Tensions flare fast. By day 5, you're calling them names, refusing to eat together. One night, your Eagles burn their flag. They retaliate by trashing your cabin. Sheriff's data showed hostility spiked within days, with 93% of boys reporting strong dislike for the other group. The hook is sharp. You think you're above tribalism, but how fast would you turn? Sheriff's genius was showing how group identity fuels conflict. You don't hate the Rattlers because they're bad. You hate them because they're them. In the experiment, competition bred stereotypes. Eagles saw Rattlers as sneaky. Rattlers called Eagles weak. Sound familiar? Think of sports rivalries, political divides, or even workplace cliques. Sheriff's team then tried to fix it. Shared meals didn't work. Boys threw food. Fixing a broken water pump together, though, did. When you and the Rattlers had a common goal, like survival, hostility dropped by 60%. You need a shared enemy or purpose to bridge the gap. Now, imagine this in your life. You're in a group chat, and one faction starts bickering with another over something trivial. Politics, music, who's right? You pick a side, and suddenly you're sniping, unfollowing, or worse. Sheriff's work explains why. Group loyalty blinds you. In follow-up studies, Even arbitrary groups, like those based on coin flips, sparked bias. You favor us over them, even when them is just a label. Ever caught yourself judging someone because of their team, city, or beliefs? That's Robber's Cave, playing out in your head. The suspense here is subtle, but sticky. Where are you drawing lines right now? Sheriff's findings suggest you're wired to form tribes, and tribes breed conflict. Remember that time you felt a surge of loyalty to your group, maybe at a protest or a family feud? The experiment shows how fast us versus them takes root. Critics argue the study was too controlled. Real-world conflicts have deeper roots, like history or power. The all-male, all-white sample also limits its scope, yet the truth endures. You're quick to divide, slow to unite. As sleep pulls you under, picture that camp. The rattler's laughter echoes across the field, and your eagle pride burns. Sheriff's work whispers, you're not just a kid at camp, you're always picking sides. In life, you're sorting people into us and them, often without noticing. What's your tribe right now, and who's on the other side? The campfire fades, the tension lingers, and the dark wraps around you, soft as a question you can't quite answer. You're in a small enclosed space, a box, if you will, facing a lever and a light bulb. Every time you press the lever, the light flashes, and sometimes a pellet of food drops into a tray. You figure it out quickly. Press, get food. But then the rules change. The light flashes randomly, and pressing does nothing. You keep trying, hoping to crack the code. This is B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning, born from his 1930s experiments with rats and pigeons. And it's about to show you how your behavior is shaped by rewards and punishments, often without you even noticing. Picture yourself as one of Skinner's subjects, say, a rat in his famous Skinner box. You're hungry, sniffing around. When you accidentally bump a lever, a pellet falls, and you eat. Soon, you're pressing that lever like it's your job. Skinner's data showed rats learned fast. Within minutes, they'd press dozens of times for food. Then he tweaked it. Press too soon. No reward. You learn to wait. Or he adds a shock for wrong presses, and you hesitate. The hook is sly. You think you control your choices. But how much are you just chasing pellets? Skinner's work revealed that behavior isn't random. It's sculpted by consequences. Positive reinforcement, like food for pressing, makes you repeat actions. Punishment, like a shock, makes you stop. In human studies, Skinner's ideas translated. Kids praised for good grades studied harder. Workers given bonuses hit quotas faster. In one experiment, students rewarded with candy for solving puzzles worked 40% faster than those who weren't. But here's the twist. Random rewards, like a slot machine, hook you hardest. You keep pulling the lever, checking your phone, because maybe this time you'll get a hit. Ever doom scroll for likes? That's Skinner's box, glowing in your hand. Now, imagine your life as a series of Skinner boxes. Your boss's praise keeps you working late. A speeding ticket makes you ease off the gas. Skinner showed that timing matters. Immediate rewards lock in habits faster. In a study, rats given food right after pressing learned twice as quickly as those with delayed rewards. You're the same. A quick, good job from a friend feels better than a performance review months later. But punishment's trickier. Harsh penalties, like yelling at a kid for spilling juice, can backfire, making them sneaky instead of careful. You've felt this, haven't you? A scolding that made you hide rather than change. The suspense here is quiet but relentless. What's conditioning you right now? Skinner's findings suggest you're not as free as you think. Remember that time you kept checking an app, chasing a reply that never came, or when you avoided a task because it once went wrong. Critics argue Skinner oversimplified humans, ignoring emotions or free will. His animal studies don't fully capture your complex motives, yet the truth sticks. Rewards and punishments shape you daily. From diets to deadlines, you're pressing levers, hoping for pellets, dodging shocks. As you sink toward sleep, picture that box. The levers there, the light flickering. Skinner's work whispers, you're learning, always learning, from every outcome. What's rewarding you now? A smile, a paycheck, a fleeting buzz? And what's punishing you, making you flinch from risks? The box fades, but the question hums, soft as your slowing breath. You're not just in the experiment, you're living it. Every choice a press of the lever in the dark. You're watching a stranger fumble through a task, say, assembling a puzzle in a lab. They're slow, making obvious mistakes, and you're quick to judge. They're lazy, maybe not too bright. Then you learn the puzzle was rigged, the pieces mismatched on purpose. You feel a pang of guilt, but the judgment lingers. This is the fundamental attribution error, a concept explored by Lee Ross in the 1970s, and it's about to reveal why you're so quick to blame someone's character instead of their situation. It's a mental shortcut that shapes how you see everyone, including yourself. Picture yourself in one of Ross's experiments. You're asked to evaluate a student's performance in a quiz game. One group of students plays the questioner, writing tough trivia questions. Another plays the contestant, struggling to answer. You watch the contestants flounder, missing question after question. Naturally, you think they're less intelligent. Why else would they fail so badly? But here's the catch. The game was stacked. Questioners had the advantage, crafting questions from their own knowledge. Ross found 80% of observers rated contestants as less competent, ignoring the rigged setup. The hook stings. You think you judge fairly, but are you blind to the context? This error runs deep because your brain loves simple stories. It's easier to call someone clumsy than to consider their slippery shoes or uneven floor. In a classic study, participants read essays supporting or opposing a controversial issue, like nuclear power. They were told the writer had no choice in their stance. It was assigned. Yet, 60% still assumed the essay reflected the writer's true beliefs, not the assignment. You do this too. Ever snap at a slow cashier, assuming they're careless, not thinking they might be new or overwhelmed? The error makes you quick to label, slow to empathize. Now, imagine this in your life. Your coworker misses a deadline, and you peg them as unreliable, not considering their sick kid or crashing laptop. Or you beat yourself up for a bad presentation, blaming your stupidity instead of the sleepless night before. Ross's work shows you overplay personality and underplay circumstances. In cross-cultural studies, this bias is stronger in individualistic societies, like the US, where you're taught to see people as masters of their fate. Collectivist cultures, like Japan, lean more toward situational explanations. You start to wonder, how many times have you misjudged someone, or yourself, because you missed the bigger picture? The suspense here is a slow unraveling. Who are you misjudging right now? The fundamental attribution error suggests you're constantly writing flawed stories about others. Remember that time you got mad at a friend for being late, only to learn their car broke down? Or when you felt like a failure, ignoring the chaos around you? Critics argue the error isn't universal. Some people are better at spotting context, especially with training or empathy. Others say lab studies exaggerate the bias by controlling situations too tightly. Yet it sticks. You're wired to blame the person, not the scene. As sleep tugs at you, picture that quiz game again. The contestants struggling, and your judgments forming. Lazy, slow, unprepared. Ross's work whispers, look closer. The game's rigged, the world's messy, and people aren't always what they seem. What story are you telling about someone right now, and what's the truth you're missing? The lab fades, the question softens, and the dark wraps you in its quiet embrace. You're scrolling through a forum, tossing out opinions on a topic you barely know, say quantum physics or tax policy. You type with confidence, tossing around terms like entanglement or fiscal stimulus, as if you've got a PhD. People upvote your post, and you feel a glow of smugness. But deep down, you're winging it, cobbling together scraps from a podcast or headline. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect, uncovered by David Dunning and Justin Kruger in 1999, and it's about to show you why the less you know, the more you think you're a genius. It's a trap you fall into more often than you'd like to admit. Picture yourself in one of Dunning and Kruger's experiments at Cornell University. You're taking a test on logic, grammar, or humor, basic stuff you think. After finishing, you're asked to estimate your score and rank yourself against others. The results are brutal. Those who score in the bottom 25%, say getting 10 out of 20 questions right, rank themselves in the top 60%. Meanwhile, top performers, scoring 18 or 19, underestimate their rank, thinking they're average. The hook is a gut punch. You're most confident when you're most clueless. In their study, low scorers overestimated their performance by 30 to 40%, while experts were off by just 5 to 10%. Ever felt sure you nailed something, only to crash spectacularly? That's the effect grinning at you. Why does this happen? Your ignorance blinds you to your own gaps. If you don't know what you don't know, you can't see your mistakes. Dunning and Kruger found this across domains: driving, writing, even medical knowledge. In one test, students who flunked logic puzzles thought they aced 70% of them. You're not just overconfident, you're unaware of the skills you lack. But here's the flip side. Learning a little humbles you. In follow-ups, when low performers got feedback or training, their confidence dropped. They started seeing their errors. You're not doomed to delusion, but you've got to seek the truth. Now, imagine this in the wild. You're at a party and someone's spouting nonsense about climate change or vaccines. Dead certain they're right. You've been that person, haven't you? Maybe it was a debate where you doubled down, ignoring your shaky facts. The Dunning-Kruger effect explains why beginners strut while experts hesitate. Social media is a breeding ground. People with half-baked takes shout loudest, while pros add caveats. In a 2006 study, amateur chess players overestimated their rank by 50%, while masters were nearly spot on. You start to wonder, where are you overreaching right now? The suspense is a slow, creeping doubt. What's your blind spot? Dunning and Kruger's work suggests you're always at risk of thinking you're smarter than you are. Remember that time you gave advice you weren't qualified for, or tackled a DIY project that ended in disaster. Critics argue the effect can be overstated. Cultural humility or self-esteem shapes confidence too. Some say it's just a statistical quirk. Bad performers have more room to overestimate. Yet the truth bites. Ignorance fuels bravado. You're not immune, no matter how clever you feel. As you drift toward sleep, the world softens and the forum fades from your screen. The Dunning-Kruger effect lingers, a gentle warning in the haze. You're not always the expert you think you are, but that's okay. The quiet of the night wraps around you, smoothing the edges of your doubts. Each experiment you've wandered through, conformity, obedience, memory, morality, shows you're human, flawed, and searching. Let the questions settle, like dust in moonlight. You don't need all the answers now. The stars are out, the air is still, and your mind is free to rest. Sleep comes, soft as a whisper, carrying you into dreams where you're just you. No tests, no traps, just peace.